Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I'm going to answer a question that a number of people have asked as they watch my training vlogs. And just a reminder for people who are watching these, a lot of people don't realize these are older clips from my training vlog that you're seeing in the background that are usually relevant to the sort of topic we're discussing. But I actually vlog every one of my workouts with a full description. So I've had a lot of people ask me, why aren't you doing pause on all your close grip bench or on your close grip incline bench? And the reason for that is that this is my supplemental work. This is just my general hypertrophy work. And there's a number of things going on, and I will discuss in here what I'm doing specifically with it and why. But I think people need to remember I generally advocate the pause bench for a number of reasons. Number one, obviously, if people are going to go do powerlifting or anything like that or count their bench against other guys, only a pause bench is going to count. Otherwise, you're potentially cheating the weight up, because if you don't remove the touch and go or the potential bounce, you don't know how much weight you're getting out of the bounce. And the problem we have is that guys will just bounce the weight off their chest and then claim, well, I benched X amount of weight. Well, probably not. You might have added 10, 30, or even 50 pounds to your bench, depending on how hard you bounced it. It has nothing to do with your strength. Number two, for general size purposes, novice lifters are really bad about bouncing the bar off their chest and losing their tightness. These are the same guys who then talk about how the bench press doesn't make their chest get big, right? They're like, oh, the bench is a terrible exercise for growing my pecs and my chest. Well, no, bouncing a bar off your chest is a terrible method. The bench press is just fine. And so by teaching guys to pause bench, you force them to get tighter and stay tighter. You force them to learn scapular retraction better, which gets a deeper stretch on the chest, and you force them to learn to use the chest as the primary mover to drive it off the chest. And if you force novice lifters in their first year to do exclusively pause benching and don't tell them that they're allowed to do anything else, guess what happens? Their chest grows. They actually develop a chest from bench pressing, which is usually part of the goal, and then delts and triceps are secondary built muscles. Right? They'll grow from it, but not to the degree as a chest. It's going to be your main chest exercise. And it will reinforce that, and it will teach them to use their chest to bench out of the bottom. Because that's exactly what you have. All the bounce benchers, they do what? They oftentimes complain that their chest is underdeveloped. They're all delts. They'll have big, round capped delts, but they have no chest from bench pressing. And then those are the guys who will tell you, oh, the bench doesn't work the chest. Well, no, they get loose out of the bottom and they just bounce it off their chest. They skip the first few inches where the chest is the most involved. That's where your chest is usually doing the most work, because it has the most tension placed upon on the muscles if you look at the mechanics involved. Right? That's where the most muscular tension occurs on the pecs. And so by, again, bouncing it, they're removing that. So teaching guys to pause bench is of extreme value for this. It's extremely valuable. What you'll notice on all mine, I have control at the bottom, I have scapular retraction, and I'm still using my chest and delts to get the weight started. Right? And it's on all of these. It's on the close grip and it's on the incline. I have control of it. It's a light touch. I'm maintaining tension at the bottom. I'm not getting loose and bouncing. Notice my scapula stay in full retraction through the entire range of motion. I keep my scapula back at the bottom. Everything is tight, and I keep my scapula back at the top. I lock out with the scapula still retracted so that we maintain that position that will keep me stretching the pecs. All right, number two, especially on the incline close grip, look how long that range of the motion is, and notice the fact that you can get a better stretch reflex on the pecs. Because I'm coming down and reversing it immediately, not bouncing, we're reversing it immediately, it can give you a good stretch reflex on the chest. Alright, so I'm maintaining tightness and getting a stretch reflex. This is the stuff that I need to keep my chest growing. Because why is it that I am doing these? Well, because obviously I need more chest, but my delts need a lot of work. My triceps need a lot of work. That's the reason I do them. These are heavy focus for me for building my bench press. Now, obviously my pecs need work too, but both of these work the pecs. But I'm using a closer grip because it, again, involves more shoulder, more tricep. But I'm still getting really good chest activation, particularly on the incline, because of the long range of motion And I'm keeping scapula back, making sure I'm getting that stretch reflex in the pecs at the bottom. So it should help bring up the entire upper and middle chest and things. Because that's what the incline does. Even the data is pretty good on that. It's pretty good middle chest. Works the middle chest as much as the flat bench does. Upper chest slightly more, a lot more shoulder. Both front and side delt. But I am trying to get that stretch reflex. That's one of the benefits of the incline. It's especially just a decently shallow one like that. It's capable of getting a stretch reflex on the pec. So I'm making sure I get that. But what else do? I pause on the last rep usually. Okay. And there's a reason for that. It's because I want to ensure that it's harder. Normally I just care about getting the volume in. I want to get a good stretch reflex. I want to get a good solid workload done with a weight that I am maintaining good control of. So I'm generally selecting a weight that I know is going to be about my 5 sets of 10 max. Meaning I'm probably not going to be able to get an 11th or 12th rep on the last set. These are limit sets. I could probably squeeze out another rep on the first set or two. But as fatigue accumulates, what happens? It gets harder. And you guys will notice as it gets more fatiguing, a lot of times when I'm doing these on my multiple sets, on set 4, especially set 5, I start doing a rest at the top. I stop and take a couple of breaths while I've got it locked out. And that's fine. These are sub-maximal weights. I can hold them at lockout without any real fatigue. So I hold it at lockout with my elbows locked. And yeah, that is my elbows locked for me. That comes up a lot. That is my structure. That is my elbows at full extension. That's where the joint hard locks. So I hold it at lockout and then get a couple breaths, and then on the very last rep I will pause it on the chest and then drive it up. Why? Because a pause bench is slightly harder. And so if I fatigued myself to the point where I'm having to do a little bit of rest pausing and then I just pause on the last rep, what has happened? I finished the muscles, right? That is going to be basically failure, because when I am already so fatigued that I've got to rest pause for a second or two sometimes on the last reps. That pause, which is a harder, slightly harder, maybe a 5% more difficult than a touch and go in terms of work capacity. I've done a limit set by doing it that way. See, I have to pause right there and then I can barely lock it. In other words, if I tried to go for another rep, I would fail. I would fail. That is within 1 rep of failure. So I've done my 10 rep max for that set. So we're completely fatiguing all the muscles with a large amount of volume involved. This is my hypertrophy training. And I'm not worried about the specificity. People will say, well, aren't you worried that it's not going to improve your max bench because you're not practicing the pause? I do pause bench on all my heavy work. So what people forget is that if you look at any of my vlogs, I do a max bench on some sort of bench variation with a pause, and then I do all these exercises. Do you guys really think practicing pause benching with a weight that's light improves your strength? You think it improves your pause bench with specificity? No, not really, because you're not practicing pausing with a heavy weight. When we have novices do 5s, that is their heavy work, right? A 3x5 or a 5x5, when that is your primary stimulus, is your heavy work. That will carry over, because that's the heaviest thing that you're going to touch that month. The heaviest thing you're going to touch that month. But a bunch of sets of 10, pausing with a 10 rep max is not going to particularly carry over, because you're not in a fatigue state. It's not a maximum weight. Now, by pausing on the last rep each time, I am pausing in a fatigue state where that feels like close to a max. So that's the only one I pause on. So it's to finish off the muscles, to make it a limit set so that I induce hypertrophy from all the volume, because I mean in a standard upper body pressing day I do 5 sets of the close grip and then 5 sets of the close grip incline. That's 10 total sets of 10 reps. It's a pretty significant amount of volume. And they're limit sets. So that is my hypertrophy work, and I only worry about a pause on the last rep, because that's the only one that's close enough to really count and carry over anyways. And I always pause on the really heavy work. So those are all pause singles for the stuff above 90%. But generally speaking, unless you're within 1 or 2 reps of failure, you're not really getting the technical carryover that you think you are. You're really not. At this point, these exercises are just being done for hypertrophy. They're being done to build my chest, my delts, and my triceps. Okay, that's it. That is why I am doing them. It's to maximize size, because those areas need a lot of work for me if I want to get my bench stronger. So that's why I'm not pausing. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.